this is something that Lightning and like layers and I guess sidechains can like bring is like the excitement or the space to imagine, I guess, and mess about that altcoins have. I guess it's one of their benefits, right? Is that there's a lot of like room to mess about basically that you can't really do on the Bitcoin main chain. So I suppose that's something that Lightning does bring. I guess something that and this is something that I'm kind of making up to a degree here, but obviously there was that news, this rumor that Amazon is apparently going to be accepting Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, and I can sort of smell Amazon coin or something coming at some point, which is going to, I'm guessing, like a Binance chain ripoff or something. But I think something with Lightning as well, which again, this is me totally assuming something, but when they say they're accepting Bitcoin, I can't really imagine Amazon accepting on-chain Bitcoin all that frequently. I would imagine that it would be Lightning that they would end up accepting. I'm just again assuming here, but obviously if that were to happen, obviously that will be quite a big, I guess, test of how much it can hold up to potentially a ton of people now suddenly making quite a lot of payments, because a lot of people use Amazon a lot of the time. So I guess like that for me, that's what I've kind of been focusing on the last few days, is thinking, well, how would that work and how would that hold up and how would Amazon try and implement it? And I think that's quite an interesting thing if they go down that road. And obviously, again, I'm making assumptions based on articles that have here, sort of someone says. But I think it could be really interesting to see how it holds up, I guess, and how it changes as well, potentially. If Amazon brings loads of focus to Lightning, suddenly, potentially, you might have more people working on it and more interest in it. And, I guess that's just something I've been thinking about. And so I can understand when you say Lightning is exciting. For me, that's another reason why it's exciting. Yeah,
the first thing that comes to mind, isn't it, which I think is what you're saying, is, well, even if they were prepared to deal with like delays, there'd just be way too much potential volume for that to hit the main chain. So they must be thinking of off-chain solutions. And the next thing you think is, well, there's also more custodial model. Like it's a bit like with Bitrefill, right? You can directly pay for something with Lightning, but you can also just like charge your balance up either with main chain or with Lightning, and then you can use that money to buy things later. So they might be thinking more like that, or who knows what they're thinking. I mean, maybe we should really be talking about I guess that case is almost more interesting than El Salvador, isn't it? Because the numbers you could get via Amazon are so large. At least in theory, it could. But with El Salvador, I guess it's a bit smaller. But I don't know, maybe not, because that's the whole country. I don't really know.
No, I get where you're coming from. I think it's El Salvador is a lot more factual based. But then obviously there you've got the situation where a lot of people maybe don't have access to be able to use Bitcoin, and a big amount of the population don't understand it yet, and probably won't for a little while yet. And the education is needed. It's an awesome opportunity, but also I guess it's been talked about a lot. And I suppose that was just the first thing that came to mind when I heard about this potential Amazon rumor. Was like, wait a minute, I can't imagine they're going to be accepting on chain unless, as you say, potentially a kind of account top up situation, maybe. But I just figured it was interesting to. I guess it's interesting, and that kind of I'm already sort of somewhat very interested in Lightning, even though I still don't have a 100% understanding of how it works. But I guess that comes in even more so is like, well, the theoretical situation where it's like, well, hold up, if Amazon with their millions around the whole globe suddenly decides to accept them, it's like, well, this could be a real big thing for Lightning and Bitcoin in the process, and further layers and all sorts suddenly being developed. Because obviously the internet wouldn't become what it is now if everyone didn't have interest in using it, I can imagine. I mean, if everyone had just said, nah, we don't need to transfer information, and everyone just agreed we don't need to transfer information on a big web, then this wouldn't be happening right now, would it, I guess? So, I don't know. I thought it was a bit of sort of I guess I've gone on a tangent. I've not really asked you a question, but I suppose it just explains what I was saying.
No, I don't. I do think, though, we should just ignore it until something concrete happens, because this story just keeps coming back. PayPal's accepting, Amazon's accepting, and then at some point they do something and it ends up being so weak source usually that it doesn't really matter. And I mean, you just don't know. Just wait and see what they say. I mean, I guess, yeah.
I wanted to ask you, speaking about Lightning Network, I've heard conflicting things about how private it actually is. Like some people say it's super private and other people say it's not. Do you have any opinions on privacy in the Lightning Network?
Yeah, I must admit, I haven't done my due due diligence properly yet. I've seen a couple of talks and I've read a couple of things here and there about, different ways in which it can be. It's the kind of network that can just inevitably be attacked in some sense by people probing. It's just the nature of the thing. There will always be ways that people can kind of probe to find out to try and find out where things start and finish, to try and find out, the origin of a particular payment and so on. And there is this kind of linking point of the funding transaction, which inevitably is on the blockchain, right? And so there is a sort of watermark there saying, well, this channel was created at this time. But it's a tough call. I think I can only go by intuition, really. My intuition is that whilst it's true that a network like this would not represent a decent level of defense against state-level attackers. Somebody really well-resourced and really determined to identify your payments. I don't think it's good enough for that, certainly not today. And of course, that sort of feeds into my next point, which is I think that it is going to improve with scale. There are other little improvements here and there. The Taproot soft fork once it's implemented, will significantly improve Lightning privacy in at least two ways. One way is that what's called a point time lock contract, which is a very closely aligned concept to what I was describing earlier in the context of swaps. I was saying the use of adapter signatures enables you to sort of hide secrets in signatures. There'll be a similar trick here where you're able to kind of share a secret along a path, along a route in the Lightning Network, but each individual hop in the route won't be using the same secret value. So it won't be possible for people to try and correlate a route using a single fixed secret or hash, specifically a hash value, as it is today. That's one of the ways Lightning privacy can be attacked today. Although it's not necessarily easy, but you can do it. What was I saying? The other way that the Taproot soft fork, at least these are the two that spring immediately to my mind, the Taproot soft fork will help Lightning privacy, is that a Lightning channel open and close today are a very obvious thing. And why are they very obvious? Because they use a multi-sig contract in which it's a 2 of 2 multi-sig. And so when that thing gets see, the thing is, when you create a multi-sig output, you're sending to an address which is just what's called a script hash address. So it's still just a hash. So nobody really knows what the script was that created that hash. But when you then spend out of that UTXO, you have to reveal the entirety of the script that created the hash. And that, in the case of Lightning, that is a 2 of 2 multi-sig. And so even when the channel is open and closed normally, and there's no shenanigans, nobody drops out, nobody tries to cheat, nevertheless, the script is revealed, and the script is a specific kind of 2 of 2 multi-sig. So it's pretty obvious, if not 100% obvious, which UTXOs on the blockchain today are ingoing and outcoming from Lightning. And with Taproot, that won't be the case, and at least depending on if people implement this, specifically because people can create kind of squished down multi-sigs into a single signature, which means that it will just look like an ordinary spend of a single signature output instead of a multi-sig. So the grand goal of Taproot plus Schnorr is that wherever possible, every kind of script, whether it be a complex script or whatever, will have this property where, as long as everyone agrees, then we all pay out to one single sig pub key. Or even though behind the scenes it's actually like a 10 of 10 or something, Sorry, I'm going on about Taproot. So you get the idea. I'm trying to give you a couple of examples where Taproot will help with Lightning privacy. I don't think Lightning privacy is at all perfect. It is the kind of network that is subject to attacks just because people can go and talk to it. It's an open network. It's not like, you can't compare it with the Swift network because that's all encrypted wires that nobody can tap into. But we can all talk to the Lightning Network, and so you can attack it, but it will also get better with scale, is the third point I'd make. I'm pretty sure that's true.
So this is more like tapping into your Nostradamus, for lack of better words, your predictions. So during the last bull run where we saw the market sailors, buying up Bitcoin and the whole, Wall Street, invasion of Bitcoin. So after that, I predicted that, the next adoption wave of Bitcoin would be, because we've had retail and we've had corporate. Now will be my next prediction will be that we'll be having nation states and national treasuries actually, buying up Bitcoin. And I think when I saw the news of El Salvador, making Bitcoin legal tender, it kind of validated my prediction.
Yeah.
So then we also had the other extreme at the other end where we saw China basically kicking out Bitcoin from the state. And it basically, we have two possibilities. Do you see, what do you think will be the future of Bitcoin for the next 2 decades? Will we have,
easy questions, huh?
companies, will we see more countries buying up, making Bitcoin, incorporating Bitcoin, integrating Bitcoin into their national framework or, financial policies? Or would we see more of the Chinese stance and, more countries, taking a stand against banning Bitcoin, basically?
I mean, I have no idea, but I think I've always felt like the best predictor of the future is the past. It's still a lousy predictor, but it's the best one, right? So, I mean, you can come up with some theory completely, ex nihilo, just make up your own theory about how the future will evolve, but I don't know. And I think looking at the way governments have reacted to Bitcoin over the last 10 years, what's been the themes? I think the main theme has been ignorance. There's a lot of, not just ignorance, but especially from like the sort of pundit class of economists, it's been like a very like outward sneering and laughing at Bitcoin as a concept from the early days. That's slowly shifted, of course, but the only thing they're really reacting to is the price signal. It's like you very clearly see how the sort of the quality of their discourse around Bitcoin is strongly affected by the price, but it doesn't actually convince them to ever really study it. It's like, to the minds of the political and economic class, Bitcoin is just an error. It's an error of the ordinary person or of the technical person or of any person who thinks it has value. It's just I don't see them changing their mind about that. And of course, you could say, the El Salvador case illustrates the opposite. But I suppose the El Salvador case illustrates the other kind of historical feature you'll see, not so much with governments, but with other things, which is it tends to be the smaller, the less powerful, the more out on the edge element of a particular group that gets interested in or takes interest in Bitcoin earliest, right? And so El Salvador, you have a very small country, a relatively poor. I don't know exactly how poor, but it's relatively poor at least. Which has its own problems. I think I've heard it has problems with violence and maybe drugs. I can imagine there's all kinds of drug war elements to it. But anyway, my point is, it's just like, it's a fairly minor thing. So if we think about the future, going out decades, it's really hard, but going into the future, I don't see any realistic prospect that the big power centers, the Beijings, the Washingtons, and the European power centers are going to start to look at Bitcoin more favorably over the next several years. I would strongly suspect it will get more and more negative, but it will also be slow. The reaction is always slow, So how does this come to a head? I mean, we can hope that it doesn't come to a head, that it becomes a case of, so much of your population has become connected with Bitcoin, and many of the politicians themselves, don't forget, they often secretly are buying Bitcoin in the background. This is an important point, right? It's an important dynamic, because without that dynamic, we would just be in a direct out-and-out war. And I think we can hope that it continues to, the changes in policy, continue to be slow as they have been. And eventually it reaches a point where there's not really very much they can do. Because I think if that's not true, then regardless of some small states here and there decide to buy up some Bitcoin or to be positive towards it or use Bitcoin, the big states are going to be so massively against it because it's such a threat to their fundamental power. I don't know. That's what I think. I don't know for sure.
One thing we do know for sure is it's a fair bit cheaper for them to store Bitcoin than it is to store gold. That's for certain.
Yeah.
the amount of security you have to store your gold as a nation state. Yeah, I think now's probably a good time. I mean, we've run for about an hour, so it's probably a good time to close up the conversation. But I mean, I appreciate the time you've taken to come and sit down with us three and discuss many different Bitcoin goings-ons we've brought up. It's been much appreciated. Really, I've really enjoyed talking to you as well and kind of getting your perspective.
Likewise. It was fun.
Much appreciated. And but yeah, also thank you to everyone out there listening for actually listening in. And if they want to, I think you're on Mastodon, right? Rather than
I do microblog on Mastodon. Yeah, gotcha. I can give you that link if you don't have it. Yeah.
Yeah, so there'll be a link wherever we've posted this that you're listening in or watching or whatever. So you can go and follow them on Mastodon. But yeah, as I say, it's been awesome to chat to you. Everyone out there listening, have an amazing day, week, year, whatever. Stay happy and keep buying some Bitcoin.